For those of you who don't know John or just happen to come in this morning and think, wow, what's going on here? John Moore and I met at the Big Sky Retreat. Now it's been 3 years ago, and we hit it off. I think we just found we were kindred spirits, and this man for me just embodies love. And if you have done the workshop, if you've done family constellations, if you know him, you know what I'm talking about and understand that. So we thought we'd just have a chat this morning. It's kind of free-flowing, and we'll open it up if people have questions as we go along. But I thought we'd just do some background stuff, so for people who aren't familiar with Big Sky, to maybe let you know what all of that is about. And when Grady and I attended Big Sky Retreat, the first time was 3 years ago, this past year, John became the president. Yes, John's the president of the Big Sky Retreat. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
Okay.
Let's make sure.
Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to see everyone. And wow, what a beautiful space. As soon as I walked in at 10 o'clock, and Donna had the bowls going, and it feels so good to be here. And thank you for that wonderful meditation and music. So the Big Sky Retreat, it literally has changed my life in so many ways. And one of them was the blessing of meeting Cindy and Grady. There they were sitting in the lobby by one of the fireplaces. I'm like, I know them. Somehow I recognize that energy. And they were just such beautiful souls. And we got to know each other and found out, oh, we're all from Florida. We had to go all the way to Montana to meet. And I sadly do not live in Florida anymore. I'm still recovering from that grief. But I live in Houston, Texas now for a lot of very good reasons, and there's a lot of blessings. I know that's where I'm supposed to be, but Florida definitely feels like home. I've lived here for 25 years and worked for the Mouse down the road for 7 of those years. But the Big Sky Retreat, I like to describe it as a 5-day hug. There is so much love there that it was started in 1976. I know a lot of you in this room weren't even born yet in 1976. But they had the intention of coming together. It was a meditation retreat when it first started in the Grand Tetons, very close to Yellowstone National Park in that part of the country. But the root of it is love and relationships, and most of the speakers that we invite, we have some kind of connection with them. It's not just these big names that come in and they do their thing and then they leave. Like, most of them are there the entire 5 days, and you can sit next to them and have lunch with them. We have group meals, and they're really, it's a unique event. There's a lot of events and things you can go to, but I did not expect to become the president of the board. My first one was in 2014, and it felt like family right away. And they invited me on the board, I think, a year and a half later, and then the former president stepped down and passed the baton to me. So it's a whole new chapter for the retreat. This year will be our 44th year, and I'm kind of woo-woo. I like angel numbers and things like that. So if you know the work of Doreen Virtue or Radley Valentine, 44 is the angel number. So I think it's going to be a really, really great retreat this year. And you get to meet great people like Cindy and Grady Grimes.
Really, it's a mountaintop experience.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You know, I never thought I'd be one of those people that want to go to the same place every year on vacation. It's like there's so many places to go, so many things to do. Why would I go to the same place? But that is becoming our thing, and it becomes a focal point for the year, that mountaintop experience, and then everything else in the year kind of wraps around that. So it's been a
people
great
have
experience.
been going for the person who brought me, Dr. Charles Geddes in Fort Lauderdale, has been part of that retreat since its inception. So, and he has become a good friend of mine. I did a lot about the workshop I'm going to do this afternoon. Did them at his center in Fort Lauderdale, but he's been on the board all 44 of those years. And if you don't know this man, oh my God,
he's a heart.
Yes.
He's a heart with feet.
So it feels like a family reunion to go back, because there are people that go every year. But I never thought I'd be one of those people. As Cindy said, there's so many gorgeous places just in our country alone, let alone planet Earth. But people say, oh, it feels like a family reunion, and one that you want to go to. So, so it's really a beautiful experience. There's some flyers about it over there on the table. If it sounds like something you might be interested in, pick one up.
All right. Well, and speaking about family, that's a great segue into
yes,
the next
it
conversation. Because we met at the Big Sky Retreat. John was leading these family constellation workshops. Now, how many people in the room have done one before? So not that many. So it would be good to just give just a little bit, because we're going to do the workshop this afternoon from 1 to 4. So you'll get a lot more background then. But we just want to whet your appetite a little bit in case you're on the fence. You'll know that you need to stay for this afternoon.
Yeah, is anyone going to see their family this week for Thanksgiving? Maybe one or two. And is there maybe someone in your family that you might not be looking forward to being near? This work, I was introduced to it at a book group in Unity on the Bay in Miami. And the first one I went to really did blow me away. I couldn't believe what happened. But in a nutshell, we are going to look at what might be causing some of that disharmony. It might have less to do with just somebody is being a jerk every time we get together, or they might be carrying something for an ancestor. Just like we can have hair color and eye color, and maybe a love of music passed down through our DNA, we can also inherit family traumas. And somebody might have been excluded or forgotten, or something terrible happened and nobody wanted to talk about it, or mom wasn't able to express the pain of losing a child. And so her heart, she had to put a wall around her heart. And then we come along like, wait, how come I can't get that love from mom so freely? Or why is mom acting like that? Or why is dad doing that? Or I said I would never be like my mom or my dad, and then I just heard something come out of my mouth that they say all the time. Or I married somebody just like my mom or just like my dad. And it's these unconscious loyalties, it's out of love that we want to have a connection with our parents, even if it's to the detriment of our own well-being sometimes. We long for that connection. So unconsciously we found a way to do that. So what we do is we shift the perspective, we see a bigger perspective, we find out how actually love is underneath all of it, and we put things back in order, we get love flowing again, and it's really miraculous what happens. It's really an experience. I could talk about it the whole time. I could talk about it the whole 3-hour workshop, and you still wouldn't get it. It's an experience. Like the Grand Canyon, if you've gone to the Grand Canyon, you know, you might have seen pictures of it, you might have seen it on TV or in a movie, but until you go and see the vastness and the scope of how huge it is and just how jaw-dropping it is, I would say the same thing about family constellations. It's definitely an experience. So if you're free, or if you have plans that aren't that important to you, change them and be here with us, because it's really the connections that happen and the synchronicities. It always blows me away what happens, and I've been doing them 6 years now, and it still amazes me every one I do.
How many have you done? About?
Oh my gosh, I couldn't even guess. I used to do 3 a month when I lived in Fort Lauderdale, and I also do private sessions, so it's in the thousands, I would say, by now. And also my training, I went to, my teacher lived about 2 miles from me, and she did 1 or 2 a week. So I would go to as many as I could to learn, because again, it's an experience, so a lot of them.
So I've seen, I don't know, maybe a dozen. I was thinking about it since we met over the 3 years, and every single one is different, and everyone is powerful, and everyone just brings different things out in the group. It just seems like the knowing field, that one mind that we tap into just knows exactly what's needed for the people that are in the room at the time. So that's why he keeps coming back. That's why I keep asking him to come back, because it really is an amazing experience. So
I'm glad to come back.
yes. Well, you know, as I was trying to think of what specifically, is there something specific that we want to talk about today? And I was just thinking about what we've talked about throughout the week, and gratitude, and the family constellations, and peace building, all these things. And I was chatting with Grady last night. You know, he's my sounding board for my talks. And so, what do we call this today? What should we say? What kind of title do we give this? And he said he loves to play on words, so he came up with the Grateful Thread, which I thought was really cool. I figured Bobby would get it, for sure. And some of those who were born after 1970s, or before 1970 something might get that reference too. But the idea of the threads, the connecting threads, you know, between people, between us and places, between us and our ancestors, the threads between peace building and family constellations and all of the work that we do. There's just so many. So I happen to be reading this book. It's called Peace is the Way. I think we should put it on our list, or maybe do a book study here or something on this. And I think it gave me that kind of point of reference, and I'm going to try to read it without glasses. But it says, all right, well, let me do this part, the way of peace. So what it talks about is, and the title is, Peace is the Way. And that being, thank you, Norma, that peace is not the destination. You know, it comes from a quote by, by Gandhi, I believe, that there is no way to peace. Peace is the way, right? Peace is not a destination. Peace is a way of being. It's a way of living.
I think it's a song, too, isn't it?
It probably is. It probably is. So he says, Deepak wrote this book, Deepak Chopra, and it says the way of peace. You know, you're living the way of peace when three things are present. Number one, and they have Hindu terms that go with them, and I'm not sure I'm going to say it right, but Siva, which means your actions harm no one and benefit everyone. That's number one. You're living the way of peace when you know your actions harm no one and benefit everyone.
There's a great Ernest Holmes quote that I don't get it exactly right, but it's from this thing called You, where he says, you know you're living in heaven when you are okay with getting back whatever you're giving out. So if you're sending out something that you wouldn't want to give back, you might want to change your mind.
Excellent advice, yes. The second one says Simran, and it means you remember your true nature and your purpose for being here. You remember your true nature. You know, we all come here, we talk about this a lot. I've spent a lot of time this year with the idea that we all come into this life with gifts and with passions and things that we're here to do. And somehow it seems that life kind of gets in the way, and we get caught up with, I've got to make a living, you know, I've got to, make sure the kids are bathed and they've done their homework, and like all of these things that are to-do lists, our endless to-do lists, that we forget about the being and why is it that we're really here? You know, what is my purpose? What's my mission and my vision? And I feel like that's one of those things that comes out of the constellations very clearly for some folks.
Yes. One of my favorite quotes from A Course in Miracles is, you need do nothing. And that just brings me so much peace. It doesn't say you don't have to do anything. It says you need do nothing. The to-do list can get so crazy. I remember a time I was moving and I had all these things I had to pack, and my lease was ending and I had to get the moving truck, and then one of my beloved friends passed away. She was a client and a Science of Mind practitioner. She was in her 90s. She was still driving, and she really laid her body aside at an inconvenient time for me because I had a lot to do. And I was living in Miami, and the service was at the Center for Spiritual Living in Boca. And I had to go. I had to be part of it. She meant so much to me. She became a friend. And I forget about the to-do list. I had to be there. And the conversations I had with her children affected me, and I think it helped them. And it was really beautiful. So forget about the to-do list. Sometimes Spirit might have another idea that may not make sense to you, but there's a reason why you're getting that little nudge to do something else and stop the to-do list.
And then the last piece is satsang, again, living the way of peace, and knowing that you belong in the community of peace and wisdom. Knowing that you belong. And that that's the idea of realizing that you have no enemies, that you're at home wherever you are in the world, that wherever you go, you find your tribe. You know, you have that sense of belonging, and stop
Maybe
that
in
feeling.
Montana.
Yeah, maybe in Montana, maybe in Montana, but that not having to fit in anywhere, you know, where you can really be who you are, be yourself, and feel accepted and loved, and give love and acceptance wherever you go. And I think that's such a beautiful thing.
Oh my gosh, yeah, community is so important. You all got it going on here, that this center is a place where, you know, to celebrate your joys and also to have your community hold you up and know the truth of who you are during the sad times too, when something happens, when those unexpected life changes happen. It's so important to have a tribe that you feel like you can be you. You can have purple hair if you want. You can, you know, whatever you don't have to hide how you want to express yourself. And oh my gosh, you all have done a beautiful job of creating a space here so you already got that one covered.
Right. So it's those three things. It's do no harm, right? Do no harm, benefit everyone, be a person of increase, remember your true nature and your purpose for being here, and knowing that you belong to something larger than yourself. You know, that's the way of peace. And for me, that starts out as an inside thing, right? We're talking about creating this peace building center here, using this facility in this building. And I see it as a series of concentric circles where the peace has to start here. It has to be here wherever we sit, wherever we are. And then it goes outward for our circles of influence. So what's the next circle after you? What are the next people that are closest to you?
Family.
Is family, of course, family. And it's just so fun. I know we see this in the constellations, that we're all peacemakers, we're all peace builders, we're all peaceful people. If we're in New Thought movement, we're a little bit, maybe, I don't know, ahead of the curve, just a little bit, maybe, a little more conscious, a little more aware, I would say, than the general population is. And I'm seeing that more and more now that I've got this part-time gig outside of here. But I realize how important it is for us to continue to work ourselves, but also those, you know, that next nearest tier of family. Right? So I may feel like I have it all together and I meditate every day and life is good until I think about the parade of family gatherings that are coming and who's going to be there and who I'm going to see and, you know, what the conversations are going to be. And please, I hope nobody talks about politics and leave the news off while we're having this conversation. And somehow I'm not as peaceful anymore. But that's the growing edge, isn't it? Right? That's the place for all of us to practice. That we're not, you know, this book talks a lot about war. And for me, having lived in a country where I've only known peace, it's a very abstract concept. You know, and I think, well, I'm certainly not pro-war, I'm not any of that. But the fact is, if I'm in a place of disharmony, lack of harmony, or feeling those kinds of conflicts with people that are the closest to me, then that's a situation, right? That's a lack of peace right there.
Yeah, the energy, I think it, I don't know exactly what the sign says, but I heard Oprah talk about, she had a sign outside her office that said, mind your energy that you bring into my office. So if you're coming into a space and you might put on a nice smile, but you're having so much turmoil on the inside, that's not the energy I want to bring to a situation. And I know, speaking of families, some of you who know my story know my mom was an alcoholic, and it was a long journey to get to a place of peace with her. And there's I don't want to label one of my siblings as an alcoholic, but if it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's not my place to name that. But one of my siblings likes to drink a lot of beer, and when I decided that I was going to take the sibling to lunch and to thank them for all the support and everything. And I thought, oh gosh, once I decided it was going to be my treat, I thought, oh, I just signed up for a really expensive meal and I realized, wow, why was I able to get to that place of peace and forgiveness with my mom, yet I was still having a judgment about this sibling? So I said, I need to apply that same principle here. And so I went into it with a different idea. So this is what I might invite you. You might think, oh, well, there's that one sibling or that one family member that always causes trouble. But as we know in the science of mind teaching, our thoughts create our reality. So if I'm already setting it up that there's going to be an issue, so I was already setting it up that I was going to have a very expensive bar tab as part of this bill. And don't you know, that sibling ordered a Coca-Cola at that lunch. And because I changed my mind about what was possible and didn't lock them into that particular behavior. So that's one thing that I won't say that I was the reason that happened, but I went into it peaceful, knowing whatever happened, it was going to be okay. That I could have clear boundaries and I could move away, I always try to have my own vehicle so I can leave if I need to and not have to rely on somebody else. But to set the intention that this time it's possible. It may not be different, but it's possible that it could be different. And I leave space for Spirit to work miracles in that situation.
And the other thing that could happen is that nothing is different. They don't change at all, but because you've changed on the inside,
exactly.
Because we come to a place of peace. That there's the analogy of the calm in the eye of the storm, where you're okay while everything else may be swirling around you, and people doing their same stuff, and but you don't get fazed by it. You're not hooked. You don't have the pain anymore with it.
Yeah, you've probably heard that saying, you know why your mom or your dad can push your buttons so well is because they installed them. So that's what we do, is disconnect those wires, and they may not change, as Cindy said, but now it doesn't affect me. Like, oh, what if I were actually grateful for them to show me where I still have buttons, or even with a relationship, like, oh, so this is because I want to be able to be in the eye of the storm no matter what's swirling around. So again, it doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to change, but when they call and they say something inappropriate, or that comment that comes out that you can't believe they said, it's like, that's okay. That's just where they are right now, and that's okay. I don't have to take that personally. So it really is us changing, having the inner peace. So because there will never be world peace until there's inner peace.
That's right. And, forgiving ourselves, I think, goes into that too, because sometimes it's not them causing the situation, or we get hooked, or whatever.
What do you mean? It's always them. It's
and you say something, or you do something, and the stuff is out of your mouth already, and you can't take it back. So there's an opportunity for your own growing edge to forgive yourself and know that we can start again.
Yes, we think, oh, well, I go to the Center for Spiritual Living, or I'm spiritual, and I should never get mad at somebody, I should never, and then we beat ourselves up twice, once for doing it, and then once, well, we should have known better, where we can just, forgiving ourselves is absolutely one of the hardest things to do, and just know that we are loved beyond measure. It's one of the first, forgetting who we are. We are beautiful children of God. We are that love and light. That's who we really are. And sometimes people forget, and that's what you see on the news sometimes, but if we all remembered who we were and that we were connected to Source all the time, there wouldn't be, the only real problem we have is a sense of separation.
Which is significant.
Yeah, just a little.
Just a little. Let's see, we don't have a lot of time left, but does anyone have any questions for John, or anybody?
About family constellations, or peace,
I do.
or
I have
what
a
to
question,
do
actually.
when that one person shows up, or when
Well, whether you
can help me as a parent, because I know the kids are out of school for the next 10 days. So I'm trying to figure out how to keep this inner peace in the house with them, and just being fair, taking them to do activities, but not overextending myself to where I'm saying yes to everything they want to do.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a great question. One thing that has helped me, I got this from a movie called The Leap, and the producer was there doing a talk back, and he offered this advice of, we make choices from one of three places, either inspiration, obligation, or desperation, and you can make a choice from any of those three places, and it will be a different experience based on which one that you come from. So if you make it like, oh my God, I just got to get these kids out of here, you're just so desperate to have some peace, and you might, send them somewhere, and you don't feel good about it, they don't feel good about it. It's probably not the best place. And even obligation, like, oh, I should do something because they're off for 10 days and they're just bored and they're sitting around the house. And there's going to be a little part of you that's resentful, like, oh, but I have so much to do. If you can find something that you're inspired to do, which comes from spirit, and like, I just find, even if it's 30 seconds in the restroom or in the bathroom, close the door and just say, okay, Spirit, what is the highest choice for me to do with these kids today? And something might drop into your mind that you wouldn't have thought of if you hadn't given it the space. And it might be something that would be great for you, because you might be able to get together with a friend and get all the kids together, and so it's not just, but you get something out of it too, because I believe Spirit only wants win-win situations, not where somebody loses and somebody wins. So that really helped me, is to, especially when my mom lived in Florida, and she would have wanted me to come take her to lunch every single day. And when I would go over there and I felt obligated and I felt bad or guilty, she could tell, even if I didn't say it, that I didn't want to be there. And it never turned out well. We usually got into an argument, or she would complain, or it wasn't fun. But if there was a time when I felt something really great or something really sad happened, and I just want to talk to my mom, I want to take her for pizza, and I would surprise her. She wasn't expecting me, and it worked out so well, because I waited for that inspiration. And you can't always do that, but as much as you can, try to come from inspiration.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yes. Love that. I hadn't heard that before. Inspiration, desperation, or obligation. Very good. Yeah. I think I agree, and the quiet time. Even if it's just in the shower, to just be mindful in that moment, like, this is my second, it's just for me. And really enjoying that, because it's, the Viktor Frankl quote I spoke about all summer, between stimulus and response, there is a space. Right? Between what happens and what we do about it, there's a space. In that space is your power to choose your response. So what we do is we do spiritual practice, meditation, mindfulness, that increases the size of that space, right? So that we can get to that place of inspiration, and the feeling of being desperate or all the other stuff just kind of falls away, and you have that clarity.
A shower is a great spiritual practice. There's the cleansing of the water and being present and feeling the water. And I like to use shampoos that smell nice, because it gets me in the moment and not thinking about my day. And the last thing I do is just let the water hit my heart and say, thank you for washing away anything that isn't love, that is unlike love. And that's the last thing I do. That's my spiritual practice in the morning.
That's why I said this guy embodies love.
Will you repeat that, John, please?
Which part?
The water hits my heart.
Oh, I just let the water hit my heart, and I say, thank you for washing away anything that is unlike love.
What was the thing that you said about between what and response?
Between stimulus and, it's a Viktor Frankl quote, between stimulus and response, there is a space. Yes.
Can you tell us who Viktor Frankl is?
Viktor Frankl, yes. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor who lost everything. His family, all of his possessions during the war. And there was a point when the Nazi soldiers were burning a manuscript that he'd been hiding, that he'd been writing in, and his wedding band, and they destroyed everything. And he realized in that moment that the one thing that could not be taken from him was his power to choose. And he would not allow those people to make him hate, to become a person who was full of bitterness and hatred. He wouldn't allow that, and he didn't need to. So that's, that's an extreme life, an extreme example, but I think there's something in that for all of us.
I end my outgoing message when people call. My company name is Peace Through Oneness, and I invite people to keep choosing peace, because it really is a choice. If something is upsetting me, I know I shared that with one of my sisters, and she has a little rocky relationship with her husband, and he did something or forgot a birthday or something, and she said, you know what, John, I did it. I chose peace, and instead of getting angry, I just said, I'd really like to go out to dinner tonight. And instead of telling him how wrong he was and all the ways that he forgot and how he didn't love her, and she just chose peace instead, and they had a great dinner, and she goes, it worked. It really worked. So that's why I invite you to choose peace. It really is a choice, and it's not always easy.
What you was just saying kind of relates to me about the parent and the addiction with the alcohol. How do you repair a relationship without feeling guilty about it as a child to your parent, without making them feel guilty and you feel guilty, like letting them know it's bad choice?
Oh, I think you gotta stay for the constellation for that one.
Yeah, what I can say very quickly, just remembering that from a family constellations point of view, is very helpful in general, though, that love comes from parents to children. And many of us realized pretty quickly that something was going on with mom or dad, and they may not have been able to parent us like they wanted to, or like we would have wanted them to. And that was my case. I knew that my mom was really sad, and she would go in her bedroom and close the door and cry all the time. And what could I do? And it was to remember that it wasn't my job to take care of her. It was her job to take care of me. And if she wasn't able for some reason, we all eventually have to become our own parents to parent our inner child. But as far as your mom, just always knowing that she's the big one, or your dad, whoever has the addiction, even if they don't have addiction, this is true, like they're the big ones, you're the little ones, and it's not our job to take care of them. Now when they get older and they might need help, absolutely, that we help out and do things for them, but it's still remembering that they're the big one, we're the little one, and everyone will feel better when we hold that in our minds.
No more money.
Yeah, Donna, one more, and then we'll wrap it up.
I don't remember who said this, but I thought it was very poignant, and I just wanted to point this out. That said that forgiveness is just giving up the hope that the past will change. Yes. Because there's nothing you can do about the past, and all you can do is move forward. So just giving up the hope that some magical thing's going to happen and change the past hurt. That's forgiveness.
I love that. I love that. And it lets us just go forward. You know, we can't change the past, but we can change our relationship to it. We can change how it affects us in our present. Right? But realizing that we can't do anything about it is, is key.
Yeah, that is one of my favorite definitions of forgiveness. It was actually Jerry Jampolsky said that on Oprah, and he's a Course in Miracles teacher, and he has a website called Attitudinal Healing. And it's a great, like we can't change, we can just hold it differently and just know that it happened, everyone did the best they could with what they knew, and there's always a reason it didn't. If we can see that our mom or our dad or our sibling didn't do something just because they were out to get us personally, like if something happened to them too, and it just gets passed down, and when we can see a bigger picture, it helps us to have compassion.
It definitely shifts. I'll tell you one more quick thing. I know we've been out of time already for like, I don't know. Richard's going, time. I did a private consultation with John. And I've been overweight. I carry pounds, I mean, up to 100 extra pounds of weight my whole life. Of course, not when I was little. I was a big kid. At any rate, we did a private constellation, and there was a moment when John, we had a representation of the family pain that I was carrying, and I was to hand it back to my mother, who then handed it back, and in the moment, I didn't know that's what we were doing, but I felt a physical shift in my body. Number one, I didn't want to give the pain back. I felt like my mom had carried it for so long, and I felt like, well, I can handle it, she's had so much already, I've been handling, I can keep handling it. And it was not the right order of things. It wasn't the order. So when I gave back the representation of that pain, it was a set of weights, actually, that I handed back to the person who was the stand-in for my mother. I felt a physical shift in my body. And I knew, I said, this time, the weight's gone. I'm going to lose that weight. And I dropped from that time about 40 pounds. About 40 pounds. So there is something.
Yeah, it's definitely an experience.
It is an experience.
And we think that we're helping by taking some of that pain because, it's my mom, it's my dad, I don't want them to be suffering. And so unconsciously we take it on thinking it will help, but actually what that does is it just keeps the chain of pain going. So we hand it back knowing that they're happy to get it back. If any of you who are parents know that you want the best for your kids, you don't want them to have the same challenges you had. So to take it back, and then they'll pass it back all the way to a strong ancestor that can take it, knowing that you can be free going forward. Even if you don't come this afternoon, just imagine that. Imagine giving something back that you've been carrying that doesn't belong to you, whatever that pattern might be that you see or notice repeating, give it back and just see, just like pass the potato, just see it going and going and going, and that you're free. You can be free right now.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Cindy.